Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
Jason stood in the dimly lit hallway of the PCPD, his jaw clenched, his mind racing faster than his heartbeat. The truth was so close he could feel it pressing against his chest. He had spent days chasing leads, following dead ends, and questioning people who knew more than they were willing to say. Anna Devane's kidnapping had shaken Port Charles to its core, but for Jason Morgan, it was personal. He had promised himself that no one he cared about would ever vanish without him finding the truth. And now, finally, after endless sleepless nights, he was one step away from discovering who was behind it all. The tension in his body was unbearable, his fingers tightening around the edge of the file in his hand. He pushed open the door to the interrogation room, where Dante Falconeri was waiting for him. Dante's expression was grim, his hands resting on the cold metal table. "Jason," he said quietly, "I know you're not gonna like this, but you need to see what we found." Jason dropped the file onto the table, his blue eyes piercing through Dante. "Just tell me," he said, his tone low and steady. Dante hesitated, glancing at the evidence bag beside him. Inside was a small flash drive, its metal casing smeared with dirt and dried blood. "We pulled this from the wreckage outside the old warehouse. Forensics says it was hidden inside one of the security cameras. Someone tried to erase the footage, but they missed a file." Jason didn't speak, he simply reached for the drive and slid it toward himself. Dante connected it to the laptop, and the screen flickered to life. The footage was grainy, dark, and chaotic. A shadowy figure moved through the frame, dragging Anna by her wrists. Her head hung low, unconscious. Jason leaned closer, his breath caught in his throat as the person turned toward the camera for a split second. "Freeze it," Jason ordered sharply. Dante hit pause. The figure's face was partly obscured by a hood, but the outline was unmistakable. Jason's heart began to pound in his ears. The jawline, the posture, it was someone he knew. Someone who shouldn't have been there. Dante frowned. "You recognize him, don't you?" Jason's silence was the only answer he needed. "Jason, who is it?" Dante pressed. Jason stood up, pushing away from the table. "It can't be," he muttered. "He's supposed to be dead." The air in the room turned cold. Dante stood too, his voice cautious. "Who, Jason? Who's supposed to be dead?" Jason's eyes flicked up, filled with disbelief and fury. "It's Alex Marek," he said finally, his voice rough. "Anna's twin sister." Dante froze. "That's impossible, she died years ago. Anna told me she saw her body." Jason shook his head. "That's what everyone thought. But it's her. Look at the scar near her eye, it's Alex. She's been alive this whole time." Dante ran a hand through his hair, pacing the small room. "If that's true, if Alex is alive, then," Jason cut him off. "Then she's been planning this for years. She's been waiting for the right moment to come after Anna." Dante stared at him, absorbing the weight of that revelation. "Why now?" he asked. "Why take her now?" Jason leaned on the table, his expression grim. "Because Anna finally found peace. Because she stopped looking over her shoulder. Alex doesn't want her dead, she wants her to suffer. She wants Anna to feel powerless." The words came out like gravel, thick with emotion. Jason rarely let his feelings show, but this time, he couldn't hide the anger building inside him. He had seen Anna go through hell and back, and she didn't deserve this. Dante nodded slowly. "We need to find her before Alex does something she can't come back from." Jason's eyes hardened. "We will. Whatever it takes." Hours later, Jason stood at the docks, the cold wind biting at his face. The sun had long disappeared behind the horizon, leaving only shadows and fog. His phone buzzed, Spinelli's name appeared on the screen. Stone cold, Spinelli's voice came through, trembling with excitement and fear. "I found something, Alex isn't working alone." Jason's stomach twisted. "Who's helping her?" There was a pause on the other end, then Spinelli whispered, "It's Valentine Cassadine." Jason's hand tightened around the phone. "That doesn't make sense," he said, his voice low. "Valentine's been trying to protect Anna." Spinelli hesitated. "Yes, but maybe that's what he wants everyone to think. Maybe he's been covering for Alex this whole time." Jason didn't want to believe it, but part of him knew that in Port Charles, betrayal was never far away. He ended the call and stared out at the dark water, lost in thought. If Valentine was involved, everything they thought they knew was wrong. Moments later, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see Carly approaching, her coat pulled tight around her. "You found something," she said softly. Jason didn't answer right away. "It's Alex Marek," he finally said. Carly's eyes widened. "What?" "But she's dead." Jason shook his head. "No. She's alive, and she has Anna." Carly exhaled sharply, her face hardening. "Then you're not stopping until you get her back." Jason met her eyes, his expression unyielding. "I don't stop. Not until Anna's safe." The next morning, Jason and Dante were on the road, heading toward an abandoned estate on the outskirts of town. Spinelli had traced Alex's last signal there, but it had gone dark shortly after. The silence in the car was thick until Dante finally said, "You ever think about what happens after? If we find her?" Jason kept his eyes on the road. "We bring her home. That's all that matters." Dante nodded slowly, but he could feel the storm brewing inside Jason. This wasn't just another mission, it was personal. When they arrived, the estate was silent, shrouded in mist. Jason motioned for Dante to stay low as they approached. The front door creaked open slightly, and Jason's instincts kicked in. He moved first, gun drawn, sweeping the hallway. The place smelled of damp wood and decay. Then they heard it, a muffled sound, a woman's voice. Jason followed the noise to a locked door in the basement. "Anna?" he called softly. No response. He nodded to Dante, and together they forced the door open. Inside, Anna was tied to a chair, her face pale but defiant. She lifted her head as Jason rushed to her side. "Jason," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "She's here." Before Jason could respond, a slow clap echoed from behind them. Alex Marek stepped out of the shadows, her smile cruel and calm. "Well, isn't this touching?" she said. Jason Morgan, the hero of Port Charles, always rescuing the damsel in distress. Jason stood, shielding Anna. "It's over, Alex. Let her go." Alex tilted her head, amused. "Over? Oh, Jason, you really don't understand. It's just beginning." She moved closer, her eyes gleaming with something dark. "Do you know how long I waited for this moment? How many years I watched her live the life that should have been mine?" Anna weakly shook her head. "You chose your path, Alex." Alex's laughter was bitter. "No, you took mine." Dante aimed his gun. "It's over, Marek. Don't make this harder." Alex's smile faded. "You don't get it, do you? She deserves to lose everything, just like I did." Jason took a step forward. "You already lost, Alex. Don't make it worse." Alex's eyes flickered with rage. "You think you can stop me?" she hissed, pulling a small detonator from her coat pocket. Jason froze. "Don't do this," he warned. "You'll kill her, and yourself." Alex smirked. "That's the point." She pressed the button, but nothing happened. Dante lunged forward, tackling her to the ground as Jason grabbed the device. The struggle was quick, violent. When it was over, Alex was pinned down, her plan destroyed. Anna tried to stand, her body trembling. Jason rushed to her, cutting the ropes from her wrists. "It's okay," he said quietly. "You're safe now." She looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. "I knew you'd come." Jason gave a small nod, his voice rough. Always. Dante called for backup while Jason guided Anna out into the cold morning air. She leaned on him, still weak but alive. The first light of dawn broke through the fog, and for the first time in days, Jason allowed himself to breathe. Hours later, at General Hospital, Anna sat on the hospital bed, her wrist bandaged. Jason stood near the window, arms crossed, watching as the sun rose higher. She turned to him, her voice soft. "You should get some rest." Jason shook his head. "I'm fine." She smiled faintly. "You never are." There was silence between them, a quiet understanding forged through everything they had endured. "You saved my life," she said finally. Jason looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You'd do the same." She nodded. "Yes. But still, thank you." When Dante entered the room, his expression was solemn. "Alex is in custody," he said. "She's not talking, but she will. And Valentine, he's denying everything. Says he didn't know she was alive." Jason's jaw tightened. "He's lying. But we'll deal with him later." Anna looked between them, her voice trembling. "She said she watched me for years. She was everywhere, hiding in plain sight." Jason moved closer, his tone steady. "She's gone now, Anna. She can't hurt you anymore." She took his hand briefly, her touch light but full of emotion. "You always say that," she murmured. "But in Port Charles, danger never really ends." Jason gave a small, rare smile. "Then I'll just have to keep watching your back." She met his eyes, her gratitude unspoken but clear. As Dante left the room, Jason stayed a little longer, just to make sure she was truly safe. Outside, the chaos of Port Charles continued, sirens, whispers, secrets waiting to explode, but inside that room, there was calm. For now, the nightmare was over. Jason had found the kidnapper, faced the past, and brought Anna home. But deep down, he knew this wasn't the end. Alex Marek's capture was just one chapter in a story that refused to close. Somewhere, behind bars or in the shadows, she was still thinking, still plotting. And Jason, ever the soldier, was already preparing for whatever came next. Because in Port Charles, peace never lasts. And Jason Morgan, cold, steady, relentless, would be ready when the darkness returned. The late afternoon sun cast long, distorted shadows across the polished concrete floor of Jason Morgan's penthouse, turning the expansive, minimalist space into a canvas of stark contrasts, much like the man himself. He stood motionless by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his gaze fixed on the Port Charles skyline, but his mind was miles away, trapped in a labyrinth of worry and frustration. The city, usually a map of territories and logistical challenges, had become a prison for someone he cared about deeply. Anna Devane was missing. It had been 72 hours. 72 hours since her car was found abandoned near the waterfront, the driver's door ajar, a single, elegant heel lying on the asphalt like a discarded piece of a life interrupted. There were no ransom demands, no taunting messages, no signs of a struggle beyond that silent, screaming tableau. It was as if the earth had opened up and swallowed one of Port Charles's most formidable figures whole. For Jason, a man whose entire existence was built on a foundation of control and decisive action, the silence was a unique form of torture. He was a man of few words, but his actions were a roaring testament to his loyalty. Anna was more than an ally, she was a friend, a confidant in a world where true confidants were rarer than honesty. She had stood by him, trusted him when few in her position would, and now, when she needed that loyalty returned with the full force of his capabilities, he was grasping at smoke. The door to the penthouse opened and closed with a soft click. Jason didn't need to turn around to know it was Sonny Corinthos. The rhythm of his footsteps, the weight of his presence, was as familiar to Jason as his own heartbeat. "Anything?" Sonny's voice was gravelly, stripped of its usual theatrical cadence by genuine concern. Jason finally turned, his blue eyes ice-cold yet burning with a suppressed intensity. "Nothing." Spinelli's hit one dead end after another. The traffic cameras in that sector were down for maintenance. The security feed from the warehouse across the street has a 12-minute gap that coincides perfectly with the estimated time of the abduction. It's too clean. Too clean for amateurs, Sonny stated, moving to the bar and pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed one to Jason, who took it automatically, his knuckles white around the crystal. This was professional. Someone who knew her schedule, her routes, and how to disappear without a trace. And someone who has a reason to want her out of the way without killing her, Jason added, his voice low. A rival agency? A ghost from her past? The list is long, Sonny. Too long. They stood in silence for a moment, the amber liquid in their glasses catching the dying light. The problem was the sheer scope of Anna's life. As a former WSB agent and the current commissioner of the Port Charles Police Department, her list of enemies was global and legion. It could be a disgruntled criminal she put away years ago, a foreign operative seeking revenge for a fallen comrade, or a new, unseen player in the Port Charles underworld making a power move. The lack of a motive was a black hole, sucking in all their theories and leaving nothing but confusion in its wake. We're missing something, Jason said, more to himself than to Sonny. Something obvious. His phone buzzed on the counter, the screen illuminating with the name Spinelli. Jason answered it immediately, putting it on speaker. Talk to me, Spinelli. Oh, stone cold, the hacker's voice was a frantic, digital whisper, crackling with exhaustion and adrenaline. The jackal has been to the deepest, darkest corners of the digital ether, following breadcrumbs that would make a gluten-intolerant Hansel weep. I have a fragment. A whisper of a ghost. Spinelli, Jason's voice was a warning, a low rumble that demanded clarity. Right. Sorry. I managed to recover a partial data packet from a corrupted server that handles automated license plate readers on the interstate. The timestamp is 3 hours after Commissioner Devane's disappearance. A vehicle, a dark, late-model SUV, registered to a shell corporation that the Jackal has tangentially linked to, well, to a web of corporate entities that ultimately traces back to a holding company in Zurich. Sonny leaned in, his eyes narrowing. Zurich? Who do we know with ties to Zurich? That's just it, Mr. Corinthos, Spinelli continued, his fingers audibly clacking on a keyboard in the background. The holding company is a ghost. Impeccably clean. But the pattern of its financial movements, the way it layers its assets, it's a signature I've seen before. It's the financial fingerprint of... He trailed off, and the silence on the line was heavier than any words could have been. Of who, Spinelli? Jason pressed, his body coiled tight like a spring. It's reminiscent of the financial architecture used by Caesar Faison. And, to a lesser, but more refined extent, by Victor Cassadine. The name landed in the room with the force of a physical blow. Victor Cassadine. A name synonymous with ancient grudges, ice-cold intellect, and a pathological need for control that dwarfed even the most ambitious criminals. He was a specter that had haunted Port Charles for decades, a master manipulator who played chess with human lives while everyone else was playing checkers. He was also supposed to be dead. Again. Victor is dead, Sonny said, voicing the thought aloud, though his tone lacked conviction. With a Cassadine, death was a temporary inconvenience, a minor plot point. The Jackal is aware of the historical record, sir, Spinelli replied. But the patterns don't lie. This level of sophistication, this particular brand of financial obfuscation, it's his handiwork. It's like a painter's brushstroke. Unique. Jason's mind was racing, connecting disparate points. Victor Cassadine. Why would he take Anna? Their history was long and complex, tangled with his brother, Valentine, and Anna's daughter, Charlotte. It could be a move in some larger, unseen game, a way to manipulate Valentine, to destabilize the PCPD, or simply to acquire a valuable pawn. But it felt off. Victor's schemes were usually grander, more theatrical. A simple kidnapping, even of a police commissioner, seemed beneath him. It was too direct, too brutish. Keep digging, Spinelli, Jason ordered. I want everything you can find on every shell company, every transaction, every digital footprint connected to that Zurich holding company. Go back years. I want to know who he buys his coffee from. On it, stone cold. The Jackal shall not rest. The line went dead. Sonny looked at Jason, his expression grim. Victor Cassadine. If he's back from the grave and has Anna, this is bigger than we thought. This isn't a kidnapping, it's a declaration of war. Jason didn't answer. He was already moving, grabbing his leather jacket from the back of a chair. The theory was a start, a thread in the dark, but it wasn't enough. He needed to touch the world, to pressure the players, to shake the tree and see what fell out. And he knew exactly where to start. His first stop was the Metro Court Hotel. The opulent lobby was a world away from the grim reality of his mission, all glittering chandeliers and polished marble. He found Carly, his best friend and the hotel's co-owner, behind the front desk, her brow furrowed as she scanned a financial report. She looked up as he approached, her sharp eyes instantly reading the storm in his. Jason. What is it? She asked, her voice dropping. All business. I need you to think, he said, bypassing any greeting. Anna. In the days before she disappeared, did she say anything to you? Did she seem worried? Preoccupied? Did she mention any names? Cassadine, Faison, anyone from her past? Carly leaned against the desk, her mind working. We had lunch last week. She was, herself. Focused. Talking about department budgets and some new initiative. But, she paused, her gaze turning inward. There was one thing. It was probably nothing. She got a text message and her face just closed off. She made a joke about ghosts from Christmas past and changed the subject. I didn't think much of it at the time. You know Anna, she's always dealing with something. Ghosts from Christmas past, Jason repeated. It was a phrase, a deflection, but it felt significant. Victor Cassadine was the ultimate ghost. Thanks, Carly. Find her, Jason, Carly said, her voice thick with emotion. Bring her home. His next stop was the PCPD. He found Dante Falconeri in the bullpen, looking as haggard and stressed as Jason felt. The official investigation was, by the book, a massive, multi-agency effort, but it was also hamstrung by procedure and jurisdiction. Dante, as Anna's surrogate nephew and a detective who respected Jason's unique resources, was the one bridge between the two worlds. Morgan, Dante said, leading him into an empty interrogation room for privacy. Please tell me you have something. I have a theory. Victor Cassadine. Dante's eyes widened, then narrowed in skepticism. Victor? Jason, we've been down this road. The man is dead. There was a body. There was an investigation. There's always a body with a Cassadine, Jason countered flatly. And they're always remarkably resilient. Spinelli has a financial trail that points to his methods. Dante ran a hand over his face. Even if that's true, and it's a big if, why Anna? Why now? If Victor is alive, his focus would be on Helena's legacy, on the Cassadine fortune, on his son, Spencer. Not the police commissioner. Unless she's a threat to him, Jason said. Or an asset. What was Anna working on before she disappeared? Officially and unofficially? Dante hesitated, the conflict between his duty and his desperation clear on his face. Officially, she was overseeing a departmental review. Unofficially, he lowered his voice. She was looking into something on her own. She called it a pet project. She was vague about it, but she had pulled cold case files. Very old, sealed files from the evidence locker. Files from the late 80s and early 90s. A cold knot tightened in Jason's stomach. The late 80s and early 90s. The height of Caesar Faison's power, a time when the Cassadines, led by Victor and his mother Helena, were weaving some of their most intricate and deadly plots. A time when Anna Devane was deep undercover, her life a tapestry of lies and danger. What cases? Jason's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know the specifics, Dante admitted. She was secretive about it. But I saw the case numbers. One of them was the investigation into the death of a WSB agent named Alex Devane. The air left Jason's lungs. Alex Devane. Anna's twin sister. A woman whose life and death were shrouded in the darkest corners of espionage and Cassadine manipulation. Anna had believed Alex was murdered by Faison, but the truth had always been murkier, tangled with identities, betrayals, and secrets that went to the grave. She was looking into her sister's death again, Jason stated. It seems that way, Dante confirmed. And if Victor Cassadine is somehow connected to that, and he found out she was digging. The theory was solidifying, gaining weight and substance. Anna, digging into a decades-old wound, inadvertently poking a hornet's nest everyone believed was dormant. And the hornets had struck back. Leaving the PCPD, Jason felt a new, more focused kind of dread. This wasn't a random act of violence or a simple power play. This was personal. Deeply, tragically personal. He needed to talk to someone who was there, someone who lived in that world of shadows and mirrors during that time. He found Laura Collins in the garden of her home, tending to her roses with a quiet, graceful concentration. As he approached, she looked up, and her warm, perceptive eyes seemed to see right through him, to the turmoil churning within. "Jason," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "This is about Anna, isn't it?" "Yes." He saw no point in pleasantries. "Laura, I need you to think back. To the time around Alex Devane's death. You were there. You were in the middle of it with the Cassadines." A shadow passed over Laura's face, the ghosts of her own past stirring. "That's a painful chapter, Jason. One I've tried very hard to close. I think Anna was trying to reopen it. And I think that's why she's missing." He laid it out for her, Spinelli's financial trail, the cold case files, the phrase ghosts from Christmas past. As he spoke, Laura's posture changed. The gentle gardener receded, and the former queen of Cassadine Island, the woman who had fought Helena herself, came to the fore. "Victor," she whispered, the name a curse on her lips. "It does sound like him. He was always several moves ahead of everyone. He saw people as pieces on a board. And Alex. Alex was a pivotal piece in a very dangerous game." "What game?" Jason asked, his intensity making the air around them feel charged. "It was about the parchment of secrets," Laura explained, her voice distant. "It was a ledger, not of finances, but of secrets. Betrayals, hidden identities, deep cover agents, assassinations. Helena's little black book, if you will. It was believed that Faison had it, that he had used it to blackmail and control his network for years. But after he was presumed dead, it vanished." "And you think Alex was involved with this parchment?" "I know she was," Laura said, her gaze meeting his, filled with a profound sadness. "The official story was that Faison killed Alex because she betrayed him. But the whispers I heard from within the Cassadine walls were different. The whispers said that Alex had discovered the true location of the parchment. And that she wasn't killed by Faison to punish her, but by someone else to silence her. To keep the secrets buried forever." The pieces were clicking into place with a terrifying, logical finality. "Victor," Jason breathed. Laura gave a slow, grim nod. He and Faison were rivals, but their interests often aligned in the shadows. If Alex had found the parchment, and it contained secrets that could destroy Victor, he would have eliminated her without a second thought. He would have let Faison take the blame, and the truth would have died with Alex. Until Anna started asking questions. Jason's phone buzzed again. Spinelli. "Stone cold. The jackal has breached the inner sanctum. I've cross-referenced the Zurich holding company with travel manifests, private charter flights, and credit card transactions that were buried under 12 layers of encryption. A man matching Victor Cassadine's description, using the alias Mr. Frost, arrived in Port Charles on a private jet from Helsinki 1 week ago. He's been here the whole time. Where is he now?" Jason demanded, his body thrumming with the electric certainty of the hunt. "That's the perplexing part, oh, noble seeker of justice. He hasn't left. There's no record of him checking into a hotel, renting a car, or purchasing anything. It's as if he vanished into the city's infrastructure upon arrival." He didn't vanish, Jason said, his voice cold and hard. He went to ground. He has a property here. Something we don't know about. Find it. He ended the call and looked at Laura, who was watching him with a mixture of hope and fear. He's here. In Port Charles. Laura's hand flew to her mouth. Of course. The old brownstone. On Elm Street. It was purchased through a blind trust over 20 years ago. I always suspected it was a Cassadine safe house, but I could never prove it. Kevin and I looked at buying it a few years back, and the trust was impenetrable. It has